Hello and welcome everyone. It's Toby Morrison from CFS Health, and we've got Erin Enright joining us as well from CFS Health. Hey Erin.
Hey guys, great to be here.
Oh, so good to get you on. We always have good chats together. And so we were thinking before the show, we were like, what can we talk about today? And then as I asked the question, I was like, actually, let's talk about attitude. And you're like, yeah, that's the one. Like, that's so important, and something that we need to talk about. And, just like, yeah, the spot on it. It's so important and so looked, it's crazy. Like, doctors should be talking about it, your physicians should be talking about it, but they don't. And so you kind of just get left on your own. So we're going to dive deep into basically attitude makes altitude. And I can give one of my teachers, Georgia Pavlo, Mrs. Georgia Pavlo, if you are listening, thank you. When I was really sick with chronic fatigue syndrome, Georgia was one of my teachers, and I had some terrible teachers that thought I was being sick up. And, they would say, they'd give me detentions, they'd report me to the principal's office because I'd missed class and I was sick. I was literally in bed, and Georgia was one of the only, not the only, but there was about 3 teachers who were brilliant, and she was pretty much the main one. She would say to me, Toby, I pray for you every day. And when I was in hospital for a month, she got the whole class to write a card to me and send it. And I don't know many teachers at that level who go out of their way. Well, actually, my mum's a teacher and she does stuff like that, but there's not many of them who really go out of their way and do that. So forever grateful for Georgia Pavlo. And one thing that she used to say to me when I was really sick, she used to say to me, Toby, attitude makes altitude. And I didn't really understand what she was saying at the time. Like, I kind of just thought, it's kind of annoying. Like, just shut up in a way. I was like, I don't want to hear it. But she was such a positive light that I kind of was curious about it, I guess. Like, I didn't shut it off. And so I kind of like leaned in a little bit. And the more I thought about it and the more books I read at that age, I was only 16, 17, I kind of started to realize that she's right. Attitude does make altitude, and altitude meaning that we go up if our attitude is good, and we go down if our attitude's shit. And a lot of people, they see failure as failure, not failure as learning. And so then they go down this, negative spiral and feel totally for it. And then they just get stuck. And it's like they stay in victim mode, they go around in circles and they feel sorry for themselves, and they ask stupid questions like, why me? And I'm not saying you're stupid if you're doing that. I'm just saying it's a stupid question because it doesn't actually get you where you really want to go. It gets you further into where you don't want to go. And so, yeah, attitude makes altitude. It kind of just eventually took its own kind of chord for me, and it was almost like riding a horse. It was like the more I had a better attitude, the higher I went. It was pretty crazy, and it wasn't overnight. It took time, but as I started to get better, my attitude got better, and as my attitude started to get better, I started to get better. So it was kind of hand in hand. But I think if it wasn't for my attitude to change, I wouldn't have got better, hands down. Like, if you think about it, and I'll throw it to you in a second, Erin, but if you think about it, it doesn't matter what area in life. Like, it could be relationships. There's one person who really wants to work on the relationship, the other person doesn't, and their attitude sucks, and so it brings it down. But if 2 people come together and the attitude's amazing, then you're probably going to have a really great relationship. When it comes to, running your own business or work, you can go into work and be really down and just blame everyone and not take any responsibility. And, I remember this at my old work that I used to work at, and there was people there that weren't doing the work they should have been doing, and they were sitting on their phones and they were just complaining like, oh, I'm so, I'm not busy, like I'm not making enough money. And I was just watching them going, well, you're not doing anything to actually create that. Like, and they're looking at me going, well, how did you do it? And it's like, well, because this is when I was a personal trainer, because I cared about people and I wanted to help them. And my attitude was really positive and forthcoming, rather than sitting on my phone playing video games and twiddling my thumbs. And these guys were like in their 30s and 40s. I couldn't believe it. So, I think across the board, it really doesn't matter what area in life, but we really talk specifically here about recovery. Attitude is really the key. It's the key to the golden door, basically. It's what did you post in the Facebook group the other day, Erin? It was perfect. The Carl Jung quote.
Yeah, it's the quote that says, I am not what happened to me. I am who I choose to become. And that really stood out to me when I saw that quote the other day. And I just thought, wow, that is so just right on. I feel like for recovery, like people going through a really hard time, but I think for everyone as well, because, we all get thrown life challenges, no matter who you are. My grandfather used to say, I always tell Toby, he was a philosophy major, but he just says, no one gets out of here alive, and there's always going to be challenges that are thrown at everyone. So it's sort of like, okay, what do I need to do to face that challenge? So yeah, I thought that quote really was a really important reminder, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, so we're talking about, inside our mentorship program, we have a private community. And so, everyone posts in there, not just us, the clients, and they always post inspirational stuff too. But I love that. And it's funny because I was journaling this morning, and I just kind of started doing this again, just because some self kind of exploration. And once I journaled, there was a clean page, and I just wrote, a start of a day is a brand new day of new opportunities, brand new opportunities, and yeah, so it's kind of fitting to be talking about this today. Erin, just for people who don't know you, like, what do you do? Who are you? Where, like, because people might be going, why is Erin on this call? So what do you do at CFS Health? And explain to you guys, your own journey, I guess, as well, just quickly.
Yeah, so I work at CFS Health. I'm one of our coaches, and I do our enrollment calls as well. I had CFS, and I actually did Toby's program. So when he first created the online program, this was back in 2014, 2013, I think is when you started it, like launched it. And I think I joined in 2014. Yeah. So I was kind of an early group to join when Toby went kind of international with helping people. So yeah, so now my main focus is helping people heal and using different avenues to do that. So I love being able to coach through the program. And yeah, so I'm happy too that we hopped on today, just because, like we were talking, that the attitude is such a key piece to this. And I remember when I first spoke to Toby, and when he was first, creating the online recovery program to go international, and I was trying to decide if I was going to do the program with him and for recovery. And he was listing the different areas of recovery that we work on, and he said mindset, and I said, oh, I'm good there. Like, I kind of just, because I felt like, there was so much stigma as far as, the mental side of this, that people had said, oh, it's in your head, you're making it up. So I was like, nope, I'm good there. But as I quickly learned over the years, like, the mindset and how we're perceiving things is just so key. And so even going back to what we were talking about as far as attitude, I almost think too, you can look at it as awareness and self-awareness, because I think that that's really what it is. It's like self-awareness and self-responsibility, because I think sometimes when we say mindset and having a good mindset, it can sometimes portray like, I have to be positive every single day, and no one is positive every single day. I think me kind of learning that too, that like, let's create this flow with like, when things are harder, and just holding space for myself and doing what's appropriate in those times too. So I wanted to mention that too. I think just sort of the like self-awareness piece and self-responsibility piece, that's kind of a way I like to look at it as well.
One thing that comes to mind when you're saying this is, life doesn't get easier. I just get better at dealing with it. And this is certainly so true with life after CFS. I was talking to one of our old members yesterday. She's like 7 years out, and she's just, crushing it, running her own business and stuff. And I said, what's life like after CFS? She's like, it's just life, it's just life. There's challenges, it's hard, but I get to choose my hard, it's not like, I have to deal with symptoms every day and all that kind of stuff. And so even your attitude towards your symptoms is super important. But I do like that whole idea of, not pretending to be positive. I think there's just so much bullshit out there. And, it's the worst when someone outside of you says to you, you've just got to think more positive. It's like, go fuck yourself. Like, excuse my French. But like, honestly, like when you're in the trenches and you're going through chronic fatigue syndrome and someone says to you, you've got to be more positive, it's like, it's such an insult. And obviously most people have good intentions when they're saying think more positive, but it's not that. Like, give us an actual plan, give us some strategies, give us some tools that we can help you with, rather than just say, oh yeah, hey, just think more positive. So it's tough. What you're going through is really tough, but again, you know, going back to what my year 10 teacher told me, you know, Toby, attitude makes altitude. And she used to say it all the time to me. And then eventually I wrote it down, and I think it was on my wall for a little while. I had two main quotes, well, three actually. The first one was attitude makes altitude. The second one was you get what you give. So that was a big one for me. Like, you really, it's what you put in is what you get out. And so like I was like relentless and so committed. And I mean, you know what I'm like, Erin, like, you know, I'm always putting in, and I'm like, how can we, you know, luckily these days, you know, they're filling up the tank too. But yeah, it's like you get what you give. And so if you're half-assing something, you're going to get half-assed results. You know, and I think that's why our program is so good now, is because we help our clients do the work. Whereas before, when you did the program like 7 years ago, it was really the self-reliance on yourself, because there was no really weekly coaching. There was no accountability. There was none of the support and the systems that we have now, which I think is just so in the 21st century, basically, like moving forwards, you know, there's been a huge lack of connection, especially online. So it's like, you know, that's what we do at CFS, is bridge that gap, create connection, create community, create support, create systems in place so that you do stay accountable, that when you do fall off the horse, that you jump back on it really fast and you can keep moving forwards. And the third quote, which was kind of funny because, you know, I'm not really that religious. Well, I don't follow a specific religion, but it was God helps those who helps themselves, which is such a weird one. But I remember seeing that somewhere, and so I put that on my wall too. And you know, again, this all comes back to attitude. Like, if you think about it, God helps those who helps themselves. It's like, well, yeah, it's the ones who are doing the work and showing up. And you know, I think for me that really helped me with my consistency. By the way, those who are listening, Erin's very modest. Erin's like the most kick-ass person, and he's just the most amazing coach. I call her the preacher because she comes out with some of the best stuff on her calls, and I think all the clients can agree. Anything else you want to kind of share on that?
Well, I was just going to say too, going back to what you were talking about from this morning about the journal, and how you said it's like every day is a new page. And I think like two things on that too is, one of them, you know, a lot of times when we work with our members, or when I speak to people on enrollment calls, like they're in so much fear because, you know, their body like is really struggling at this point. And so, you know, recently on a call with one of our members, I talked about, well, what if you do each day, you know, do your gratitude list. And I said, when you put your attention on gratitude, you can't be in fear. So things like that, like simple things. And I know, Toby, you've had stories too, where it's like you were having a really hard time, and then you saw someone who, you know, didn't have arms and legs, and you were like, wow, like just kind of looking at what you do have right now in the current moment, I think is so powerful. Whenever you feel kind of like, oh man, all this is hard, like really hard or challenging, to like start to put your attention on those things that you do have and the things that are working. And that's even, you know, when I did the program, that was really this light switch for me, because I went from, you know, I was a college student who was like highly motivated. I was taking pre-med classes, and I was like running like all the time, and I was athletic and social. And then I became, you know, bedridden, housebound for 5 years. And so then when I met Toby, he really was able to fill in that gap of like, well, what can you focus on right now in your current reality to like get you to the next level? Whereas like to me, there was this huge gap, because I was mostly bedridden, like housebound, to then like, I want to be this really successful, high energy person who wants to be doing things and traveling. And so I think, again, just like highlighting the gratitude, highlighting the small things that are working for you, even if it's just like, I got to sit up in my bed for, you know, part of the day and pet my dog.
Totally. It's so freaking hard, but I think we need to talk to acceptance, because I think like there's two things. Like, I 100% agree with you. I think sometimes we have to force ourselves to do the gratitude thing. You know, for the guys who aren't in our program, we have a part of, you know, enrolling and joining our program is that you get a specific custom daily planner that we've created for you, and it gets shipped out. So it's a physical piece. It's not just some printout thing. And a part of it is a morning routine and a nighttime routine, and it kind of gets you in the groove. And our members love it. Like, I know Sue, one of our clients from UK, she's like emailing Ash saying, Ash, send me another one. Like, and so you get 6 months worth, and then you get this, you know, send out another one, you get another 6, and it just keeps going like that. our clients absolutely love it because it helps them set their days up. And which comes to the second point that I want to make before we talk about acceptance is priming your day. And, you know, could just be, you know, having this simple morning routine. I know for a lot of our guys in our program, it is the daily planner. It's wake up, 2 glasses of water, sit down, go through that 3-minute process. Setting up your day. Because if you wake up and you don't have a plan, if you wake up and you don't have intentions, if you wake up and you kind of just think, oh, woe is me, well, you know, your day's probably going to be pretty shit, right? And we know for a fact that, you know, we see it every single week inside our program when people have intentions, when they have plans, when they have goals, when they start to move towards them, regardless of how they feel, even if they don't feel that great, they're going to start to move forwards. And one of my old mentors who really helped me when I was sick was Craig Harper. And he used to say to me, stop having a pity party. Like, pity parties don't get you anywhere. And so that really helped me get out of that headspace. And I think in conjunction with getting out of the pity party, it was then helped me accept where I was at. I couldn't basically be pissed off with where I was at because I couldn't have a pity party anymore. It was a non-negotiable. It's like, all right, stop being, you know, sad and focus on what you're grateful for, like you're saying. But I think there is a part of like, you can't really be grateful if you haven't really accepted where you're at. And acceptance isn't resignation. That's the biggest first thing we teach inside our program. It's like, as soon as we accept where we're at, then we start moving forwards. Because like, let's start with where we're at rather than have this antagonistic push and pull and just this, like, it's this kind of friction between what you wish you could do, what you can't do, and then you're just battling yourself all the freaking time, and that's not healing. So I think acceptance is just so important. And by the way, all the guys, there's a few guys listening to this live, this session live, so welcome. And if you are here, just let us know where you're from in the chat box while we're chatting here. And so far, maybe one key takeaway that you've had so far from this conversation. Anything that you want to add to that kind of piece?
I think there was something I wanted to mention from earlier, but yeah, I kind of think too with that acceptance piece, it's sort of like each person has to find that in their own time. So like, you know, when we talk to people, sometimes people just aren't ready. They're kind of like going through their own process of grieving or whatnot, and they're not really in the place to fully take responsibility. And we know it's really hard, but I think, you know, what we talk about, it's like people need to be in, that want to work with us, just be in that place where, okay, like, I know it's hard, but like, I'm also at the point where I'm like, I'm ready to move forward. So kind of just mentioning that's like kind of the individual for each person.
Yeah, and give yourself some grace there. Like if that's you and you're not kind of ready yet, that's totally fine. But also, you know, if you want to speed it up, then just call it a decision. Like as hard as that sounds, but call it a decision. It's a choice. You know, you can choose to be a victim, and you can choose to separate yourself from what good is for you, as in success for you, or you can pull yourself towards it. You can start to attract people that you want to be like into your life. You can start to learn from people. You know, this is why our program is so freaking good these days, is because the caliber of people inside it is incredible. And so everyone's so supportive. Like, you know, I think we had a few members join literally yesterday, and like they introduced themselves, and there's like comments from all the old members like, oh, you're welcome, like you're in the right place, you know, like just so supportive. And I just think, yeah, like if you want to, whatever you want, take yourself closer to there. Bring yourself closer, as hard as that may be, you know, because you don't know what's possible until you see what's possible. It's a bit like the 4-minute mile. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember that story, Erin, about the 4-minute mile?
It sounds familiar. I can't remember right now.
So basically, it's quite a famous story, but there was no one could ever run a 4-minute mile. Like it was impossible, humanly impossible, until one day. I'm going to find out the name of this person. This is a crazy story. So one day, this guy broke the 4-minute mile. He got it, like it was like 3 minutes and 59 seconds, 4 minutes, and just put it on Google. Here we go. A 4-minute mile was achieved by Roger Bannister in 1954 at the age of 25. He did it in 3 minutes and 59 seconds. And this was a barrier that no one could break. When he did it, it opened up a world of possibility for people. And so now people run 4-minute miles all the time. Like it's the thing, right? But back then it was like, no one can do that. Like it's impossible. And you might be thinking no one recovers or you can't recover. But then when you see people winning, progressing, getting back into life, kicking goals, it's like, oh shit, if they can do it, I can do it too. And it's exactly the same thing as Roger Bannister, you know, and more people watched him and then brought themselves closer to him and then beat him, you know, and now people have, I don't even know the record, but I'm sure it's like probably under 3 minutes now. But so that's kind of a cool thing too. But I think you posted something on Facebook this morning on our page, and it was, I'm just going to get it here. Yeah, 7 key factors that are shared among those who have recovered from chronic fatigue syndrome. And one of them, the number one is, and so, you know, to enroll in the program, obviously you've got to apply for it. And then we get to know you on a more personal level through that. We get to know your goals, what your current problems are. So then we can figure out if we can help you, 1, and 2, to come up with a bit of a plan for you moving forward. Self-ability is another one. So, you know, realize it's up to them. You know, this is what we said, realize it's up to you to change yourself. If it's up to the person to rebuild their health, they can't rely on someone outside of them to do it for them. And that's an empowering thing to understand. And when you finally know that, you can start. I don't know about you, but I know you went through a journey yourself, because we spoke on the phone when you first joined the program, and you tried a lot of things. But even for me, you know, we spent thousands of dollars on stuff, but it was all outside of me. It was everything to fix me, someone to fix me. And it just didn't work. And eventually it came to a halt. And I finally had this realization of like, oh shit, like no one can fix me but me. Like if it's up to me to do this, like I can still get help from support from people and coached and mentors and all that kind of jazz, which I did. But ultimately it came down to me. And I remember when you joined the program, the thing that stood out for me is like you were seeing doctors at Stanford University, which back then was like the big, you know, it still is, I guess, you know, people who go to Stanford, they're like, oh, I'm at the best doctor's clinic in the world kind of thing. It's like, well, you still weren't getting results, you know, like there was still this reliance on hoping that they can do something magical for you, you know, the magical cure. And yeah, I think it just sets, it's really sad, but yeah, it just takes longer and longer and longer until you finally realize, oh, actually there's something that I can do for myself, and I'm going to stop relying on people outside of me to fix me, because that hasn't worked.
Yeah, and I think even there's like a parallel with that too. It's not only seeking so much outside of yourself or reliance on others, but like also now working with so many people that have CFS. It's interesting because I think there's a component too with people that like aren't living a life that feels really true for them. You know, I think there's a lot of pushing themselves for outside validation or people pleasing. And it's sort of like the body and mind and spirit are like, hey, listen to like me, pay attention. This doesn't actually feel good. And I think a lot of people with CFS actually are like internalizing a lot, which can also be contributing to, you know, the physical symptoms. So I think that, yeah, so not seeking for the external to fix, but also getting really in touch with you and figuring out, well, what's actually true for me? How do I want to live? Because I see that there's sort of like, it's almost like, Toby, when I met you, you were like, well, just start focusing on what you love. And I was like, really? Like I can do that? Because I was so driven and had this such narrow path that it was kind of like my parents, I felt like expected of me. And then I was like, well, if I just start focusing on these things I really love, it was like, members have said this in the past too, like they forget to be sick, or it's like they're not in this, you know, stress response. So there's a lot of different layers to all of this. Go down
there is, and like that's just the outer layer, and then the inner layer is like, well, the day-to-day stuff, you know, you're getting your nutrition dialed in, getting your energy systems working again, reconditioning your body appropriately, not overdoing it, getting your baseline right, mindset, progressing appropriately. There's so much stuff. Like we did a movement call yesterday morning. I filled in for Steph, our movement coach, and it was so cool. Like we were talking about strengthening your body, but in a holistic way. And we talked about compound movements, which no one really knew about, which is, you know, basically training the body in a functional way that creates whole strength versus single joint strength, you know, and talking about the best time of the day to train, you know, the foods that you need to eat before you do movement and the foods that you need to eat after you do movement. And when you shouldn't do movement at all, which for some of them was true, you know, they're not at that stage yet. And so it's knowing which stage you're at and then knowing what you need to do and then just bloody doing it, you know, and that's where we start to see results, you know. It's crazy. Like, yeah, there's just so many things I can talk about. Like, even I got off the phone to one of our lifestyle integration members last night. She's been with us for 2 years now, working with us, and she's just changed so much. She goes, Toby, I just quit my job. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. And she's like, I can't believe it. It's just not in line with who I am anymore. It was just full on, but I just knew it was true for me. And so I had to quit. And she's like, I don't even know what I'm going to do next. And I'm like, well, it's going to unfold because you have to close that door to open this door, you know? But that's the type of trust that she's built within herself and the courage that she's got now to know what's true for her and not doing things because they're right. And that's what she used to do. She'd just suck it up, go, oh, well, you know, I should keep doing it. And no, bullshit. Like, own what is true for you. And you know, our vision, and it's written on our website, but it's to help people start living again, but living the life that they love and creating a life that they love and moving into that. And a part of that is, you know, stopping what you used to do that doesn't work for you anymore, and then building the new, you know, a new kind of way of living, a new identity and becoming of what you want to be. Anything you want to add to that?
I think I just wanted to say, kind of going back to, I felt like you made a really important point earlier about just hope and like knowing it's possible. And I think that, you know, that's why we do the recovery stories. That's why I do what I do. That's why Toby does what he does. And I think it's often really hard for people when, like, you know, dealing with all these different symptoms and struggling, and, you know, a lot of maybe medical professionals don't quite understand or don't have tangible things you can be working on. And so you kind of just hear, well, like, maybe this is it. It's not. And so like just the practical things that you're doing on a consistent basis that are going to help you move forward. Like, you know, we in the program we're working on foundations of health, but that goes such a long ways. And so I guess I just really want people to know that it's 100% possible to recover. And it's just, you know, it's just going to take some time and some consistency and, you know, tuning into what your body is asking for.
And if you don't think it's totally possible, well, then just aim for a little bit of improvement first. You know, you don't have to believe that recovery is possible to start. You just got to get started, and then, you know, then you'll start to see the results. But basics do win. You know, yes, we've talked a lot about a lot of the fluffy stuff on this side of the thing, but really you got to do the basics, you know, and this is where it's overlooked. You know, a complex situations usually need simple solutions, you know, and so, yeah, you've got to have a holistic approach and see what's missing, what's been in reverse for so long, and how can we steer it forwards and rebuild. And there's literally hundreds of hours worth of video content on this stuff. You know, we can't talk about it in a single, you know, episode here, but go and check out some success stories, you know, not just from us, but there's heaps of stuff on YouTube, you know. But one thing that I would do is I would get a notepad and pen, watch every single success story you can on the channel. Hopefully it's CFS Health, so you can go and check that out. There's literally heaps of them. And then just like write the notes that write the traits that they had that got them to where they're at. And then start to think about yourself and, well, how can you do that too? You know, yeah. That's all I would leave you with. Any last words on your end?
I think that was kind of it, just knowing that to keep kind of like trusting yourself and just figuring out what it is that your body's asking for. And a lot of it's going to come down to, you know, what you're doing and your day-to-day hours. And some of these things, like, you know, we have a lot of high achievers, perfectionists type people in the program. And so we're often saying, okay, like, let's now create a plan that's going to be, you know, incorporate more sustainability. So it's just, you know, it's just you're gaining more awareness on what you need. And then it just takes time and consistency to start to move forward.
I'm just checking the comments from our live stream. Yeah, you know, Julie Smith's one of our members. She goes, I was on the movement call yesterday and it gave me such an insight to help structure my day today. Freaking awesome. Yeah, it was a fun session. We had a bit of a laugh on there too, which was good. We played a bit of a game with everyone and they had to guess which specific muscles would I be using if I was doing a pulling movement, which I was trying to teach them, and they all got it wrong. It was so fun. And they kept like trying and answering different, like this and this. And I was like, no, guys. They're like, come on. I'm like, God, like right now you're getting like an A minus, and then finally they got the answer, and I was like, all right, you guys are getting better now. It was just so funny. So the guys who are watching the live stream right now, what's one big takeaway that you got from today? Let us know in the chat box, and we'll read a couple out for everybody. What's one big take? Vivian's another member of ours. She says, I was on the call yesterday, almost answered my big toe. It was pretty funny. We were all in hysterics. So what's one big takeaway, guys, that you've had from today's session? Let us know. And if you found this video helpful, make sure you give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below. And if you found this challenging, I'd invite you to explore why that's challenging for you, and explore that before you kind of potentially react and write a negative. Yeah, just explore that within yourself. Why am I reacting to this? Jihan says, I need awareness to have consistency. Julie says, take it slow, trust yourself, recovery is possible. Vivian says, I would say to anyone that has hope and can afford this course and are ready, do it. It's a game changer. Well, we love you in the program, Vivian, you know that. We have a hell of a lot of fun, and we just get to see so much inspiration every day, which is cool. Honor Chapman says, acceptance. But remember, acceptance isn't resignation. It's such a fast, it's so counterintuitive, but as soon as you just get realistic from where you're at right now, then you can really have a plan. And trust me, if you're working with us, we'll help you get going. So you're going to get going. You're not just like sitting there around in going around in circles. Kim says, my biggest takeaway is acceptance isn't resignation. It's up to me to make this happen. Also start small, focus on improving first before full recovery. Of course, yeah, well, that's how you get there. It's step by step. And what got you here won't get you there. So we need to change the plan as you start to make improvements too. And so this is a whole process that we have inside our work that, depending on where you're at, is going to be dependent on what you do, and that will change over time as well. Anyway, it's been a brilliant conversation. Absolutely love having you on, Erin. It's always just good just to talk.
Yeah, no, I always enjoy it too. And I think, again, it's just sort of that common passion is part of it, as far as, sharing with others what is possible and how to help them move forward. So yeah, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you. We're going to leave you with a couple of things. So I'm going to leave a bunch of links below. There'll be a link on how to deal with your symptoms. There'll be a link, and this is free stuff for you guys if you're needing this help, how to deal with your symptoms and overcome them. Second thing I'm going to leave you with is a link to how to have better sleep. So we've got a 15-step guide to better sleep, which is just new and incredible. And we're also going to leave you with training on how to find your baseline, because I think that's an important one. And that's a 25-minute free training that will help you kind of understand what baseline is and how you can really gain consistency in your daily life and recovery right now. And the fourth thing I'm going to leave you with is a link to apply for our program. A few of our members here jumped on, which we weren't expecting. And, they're all saying, do the program if you can. And so if this is resonating with you and you want help, literally just click one of the links below. It'll say something like application form. You'll just fill out a small form. We'll have a look at it. We'll send you an email with all the details of how the program works and all the structure. And if it's an appropriate fit, then you'll have an enrollment call with this lovely lady, Erin. Can you explain what it's like? Because I think a lot of people get a bit scared, like, oh my God, is it scary or not?
It's definitely not scary. I always say to people too, I got an email the other day from someone said, what should I do to prepare for the call? And I said, just show up, and it's just a relaxed chat just to kind of see where they are and what they're struggling with. And then if we feel like it's a good fit, we can talk more about the program, but it's super low-key, just a relaxed conversation.
Can you share that story about that lady who was like, oh, I can't talk for, you remember that one who ended up joining the program? Yeah. And she was like, I can't talk for like more than 10 minutes or 5 minutes, and share that what happened. It was so funny.
Yeah, it was interesting. This was probably, maybe it was last year, or maybe last year sometime at the beginning of last year or the year before. But this woman I had this call with, and she got on the phone, and I think she was really nervous because she said, I can only talk for, I think she said less than 5 minutes. And I could just feel like the stress, like when I got on the phone with her from her. And so I just said, hey, like, this is low key, you know, I experience this as well. And, you know, so we can just kind of have a short chat. And if you need to get off, we can. Turns out we ended up talking for 40 minutes and she joined the program. And I think just again, and I can relate to her, and that it's sort of like when you're dealing with symptoms and brain fog and cognitive issues, and also I think what a lot of us go through in the medical community sometimes by not being quite understood, I think it can feel like, oh my gosh, it can just feel like a lot to have a conversation. And so I think it was just great to see that she was just kind of she just relaxed. And then she was like so curious on the phone talking to me, and and then at the end she was like, that was an incredible conversation. And yeah, so. And
she had more energy, you know, because it was something that she could look forward to. It wasn't a burden. And so that's where mindset's so important. You know, that's where the growth is as well. And so that was really cool change for that lady. All right, we're going to leave it there. Thanks so much for listening, guys. And we'll see you on another episode soon. All the best for now, and catch up soon.
Okay, bye, guys.
Au revoir. Bye. Thanks for watching and listening.